All right, welcome to the Underdog Ecom podcast, where two ecom brand founders are figuring out in real time.
Yeah, we're not here to preach. We're here in the thick of it, making mistakes, testing all sorts of ideas, and really sharing the journey of how we've been growing these brands from day zero. Hopefully you learn a little bit, perhaps come away with some ideas that save you time and money. And so if you're tired of the same glittery D2C advice from those 9-figure gurus, you're here in the right place.
Let's get into it.
All right, we're here in episode 7 to talk today about the origin stories of how we got into e-commerce. We touched on this a little bit in prior episodes, but we kind of want to talk about our background, our history, like why we got here, how we got here. I'm sure it's been quite the journey for both of us. I know it has been. And before we kind of dig into that a little bit more, we're going to talk about what we've been up to lately, just kind of a little catch up. There's been a lot of things lately, and we're going to try and avoid the big elephant in the room because it's been talked to death lately.
Starts with a T.
Starts with a T. It's early April. If you know, you know. But Jack, how's things going besides the big T?
Other than the big T, it's actually there's some interesting stuff happening. So one I think I mentioned in last episode is I'm starting like a crowdfunding campaign. I've been doing some of the maths behind that a little bit. American math.
No, I like the maths. The maths is cool. I'm gonna start using that more.
Yeah. I used to get so much stick for that when I was a kid living in the States, saying like all these English words and like,
oh man, I'm just here to pick up their English words.
Anyway, so yeah, I'm doing like a bit of maths on that, and like I've just been trying to figure out like what the best thing to do is in terms of running the campaign. So that's the first thing, because I've noticed I've been working out the figures, and like Kickstarter takes 5% of the total raise, and I've been reading this book called Crowdfunded that was recommended to me by someone in our Slack group actually, and it's a really good book. They talk about 20% of your sales coming, like of your pre-orders coming from the platform, but if they're taking 5% of total raise for 20% additional sales, plus that's not including the payment processing fee, which is like 3% or something. It's a lot of work, and I'm starting to think about whether I can actually do this on site. And it's also sparked this idea in my head I haven't got time for, but I basically I would love to start like an app, which is like a Kickstarter app for Shopify, where it's like has all the social proof and like community aspect, and almost like a live wait list on your product page or wherever you're taking the pre-orders. Like, and people maybe could like dynamically move up the wait list and stuff depending on what they do and like when they order and stuff. I've had this like really cool idea. Anyway, I thought it'd be cool. I don't know how many brands it would actually work for, because I think you probably have to have a fairly big audience, but I don't know. I thought it'd be a really cool thing to do, and I've charged a few people who are building apps about it, just going to get their idea. I think a lot of people said like they thought it was interesting. I just think it's a lot to build. But going back to actually what I'm really doing, like I ran running some ads basically to this new product we're launching, a bag for like racket sports that we're launching, and I actually posted this today in our Slack group because I'd been running these ads, basically a landing page where people are supposed to pay $1 to like reserve their spot to pre-order this bag, and it's been crazy. Like I've had all the people been doing is buying the rest of our bags that coming through this ad, and I've got like a 7.5 ROAS on this campaign. It's just the sort of thing ecom that you just cannot predict.
Is the objective sales? It's not like because they have like lead gen objectives in Facebook ads, right?
But yeah, I didn't do that. I thought I'll do a conversion campaign for like a $1.
Yeah.
I basically I did use like checkout links, like basically when on the landing page goes straight to a $1 digital product, and so they get like VIP, there was like a VIP ticket sort of thing, and they basically get a product at a discount in the first 200 or so, because we have about 200 in making to begin with, and then that's the idea. And it's just I've got a few people buying the $1 ticket, but it's people buying other products, and I don't understand it. Like,
so they're not even buying the one. Like most of them are not buying the $1 thing. They're buying the yellow bags.
The $1 product, yeah, the $1. I mean that probably says something about how badly I'm communicating this. First of all, second of all, I swear if I built a landing page for these products specifically, I wouldn't get that ROAS. I would nowhere near it. I do not understand what's going on.
Very interesting. I wonder if it's hitting a lot of your like really. Are they returning customers or new? Do you know?
It's there have been a couple of returning customers, but not all. So, and that's one thing I noticed when I've had a few days now. And the first day I realized, because I did it as like a CBO regular campaign, in ASC you just like set the like 0%, but I forgot like when a regular like business as usual campaign, you have to make sure like go into manually and make sure you exclude some lists and things. And so I did that, but still, I mean, it's still been going crazy today, yesterday,
Yeah.
today, and either the exclusions are not good enough, which could be, but I mean, I still seeing sales from customers who are new, and and in some one ways I'm like, this is amazing, and in ways I'm just like, I give up. I mean, what am I supposed to? What am I? How am I supposed to like optimize for anything if I get the opposite result of what I'm looking for?
That's so wow, yeah, it's kinda crazy when there's, like, a huge curveball like that. It's awesome that it's working. There was something like that that happened to me a while ago that it was just, like, the complete opposite of what I expected. But yeah, this is I don't know. I don't know. I don't have any wisdom
Yeah.
here, but this is really interesting. Let it run forever maybe, see how it goes? Yeah, like, that's pretty cool, like, to think about, if you were coming new running up to it before you launched it, like, would I take a 7 ROAS and have them buy other things? Yeah, sure, that sounds like a pretty good result, maybe not the result you were thinking about.
Yeah.
The Kickstarter stuff is interesting. I think that that 25% or whatever total is a huge sort of cut off of the bottom line, but I think you're right to think about I'm in the thick of a pre-order right now where I budgeted a month to get the shirts printed. It's just a screen print job, but there's always little things that pop up. And I set out the shipping deadline as of a month out. We're now a month and a half and I should arrive next week and start shipping, but countless dozens and dozens of emails over the last month or so, even though everywhere on the pre-order I said this is a pre-order and it ships around 4/1. But the internet, people and their reading skills these days. So I think that the pre-order doing and I've done pre-orders before. I think doing pre-orders on your own website is tricky because I think the advantage of Kickstarter is the platform's nice, but it's also this like totally independent thing.
Yeah.
It's people know Kickstarter is you're backing something with a future delivery date. So it really has that expectation from the get-go. And so I think you can probably build it on your own and do it on your own site, but you have to be over the top. Not even just saying like, "Hey, this is a pre-order on it," but maybe like totally different design, like a totally different landing page, totally different website experience,
Yeah.
and make it siloed so they can't order other things as well. Because I had customers order multiple things in my pre-order, and then they'll email in like, "Hey, can I get some of this now? Can I wait? What's going on?" And so,
And that is tough,
the,
isn't it? Because then
yeah,
in some ways you don't want to say no because these products are in stock, but otherwise you're thinking, well, if I split this into 3 shipments, I mean, I'm just pushing down my margin. So
yeah, yeah. I know there's a few pre-order Shopify apps out there. One of them built by Ethercycle, and so I'm sure it's
yeah.
probably pretty solid. And I've talked to a few clients about building that type of app for them in the past, which is always kind of sounds fun. Doing Shopify theme dev, I haven't done a whole lot of app dev, and app dev seems like a whole other world that maybe someday I'll get into. I don't know, but interesting, huh?
What
Those
about
are all
you?
kind of
How's your week been?
yeah, pretty good. Just been doing lately. I've been doing a lot of like sort of setting up systems or like setting up things to improve in the future. So it's not necessarily like super fun. Like I set up my first custom ChatGPT bot the other day to answer reviews that customers leave that are positive. And typically in the past, I was writing those all myself, and then I started to like copy and paste them between ChatGPT. And then I was thinking, well, hey, let's make this even more scalable. I'll build a thing that will answer for me, and then pass that over to the VA to handle essentially. So it's a lot of kind of like boring stuff like that, testing some ads, been doing some product dev, got some new stuff coming, got some samples coming next week, which I'm super stoked on.
Mm.
Um, Making
On
content
the
as
rev
always.
Sorry, on the review, bots, does that like, dynamically pull in, or are you still exporting, like, the reviews into ChatGPT, or is it actually pulling those in?
No, it's a copy paste job basically at the end of the day.
Yep.
So I wish that, this would be a really good platform feature for, I use Junip or Judge Me, one of those platforms that basically, I don't know why they haven't thought of that. That should be a very, very, like, with AI being huge over the last year or two, that seems like a very quick win. Maybe there's some legal ramifications or something. I don't know. But yeah, right now it's
What so you
basically,
could export them into, like, Airtable or something, like a Shopify Flow thing that exports into Airtable or into Google Sheets, and then ChatGPT can read the sheet. I don't know if that's possible, but maybe.
yeah, but I think you'd still have to copy and paste the result into
Yeah.
the review platform,
Yeah.
for the reply, unless they have like a import reply reviews. But that would be a definitely more of a bulk way of doing it rather than a one-off, which would save time.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'll have to look into that. That's a good thought. Oh, the other exciting thing that happened, I did a pop-up recently at, REI had a grand opening for a local shop near me. They
Oh,
a
wow.
shop that moved locations, and so they invited a bunch of brands and nonprofits and stuff to do pop-ups there, like little tables. We weren't selling anything, we were just kinda talking about the brand, and that was really fun, and it was really cool to kinda be involved behind the scenes in a grand opening of an REI, store, and did a few different strategies related to ecom there. I had a giveaway, $100 giveaway. 10 people could win $100 to the shop if they signed up with their email. Had a little QR code, so it's cool to see like everyone throwing out their phones to do that. I didn't get as many signups as I would have thought. It was only like around 100, and they had a few thousand people come by that weekend. So not like a huge conversion rate. And part of me is like, did I make sure I capture all those emails correctly? Was there a bug or something? And then they could also get a free mountain temporary tattoo that I made for signing up, which was fun. And that's
Wow.
something I've included freebie stickers in my orders for years, and I've kind of been trying to think outside the box a little bit, and so I made these mountain temporary tattoos to go inside the orders, online orders, and it just so happened they arrived right before this pop-up. So it was perfect timing. So that was really fun.
Blessing.
Yeah, yeah. Getting out there and doing some e-com in person, but not really selling. Just talking to people.
You'd be surprised though. It does have a massive impact. Like I think, I mean, you're testament to that, but also I've seen with I still events we've done. I still get customers come in where they like a year later. I buy like a year later, and it says like, "Where do you hear about us from?" It's this event, and I think, "Wow, I didn't expect that." So
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely and that's, like, the ideal customer profile for my customers is that exact store essentially, like and so it's really cool to talk to people and stuff, and, no one's in the grander scheme of things, my brand is pretty small, so, that was always kind of the opening question, "Hey, have you heard of this brand?" "No, what is it?" "Good question. Here's what it is."
thanks for asking.
Yeah, unprompted, totally. Yeah, but that's been yeah, that was fun. But, yeah, so that was what we're going to talk about in bulk here today a little bit is the origin stories of how we got into e-commerce and why we're here, why we love it, um, that sort of thing. Like what mistakes do we make along the way? So many. Well, I don't know if I'll have enough time for all those, but lots of learnings. But yeah, Jack, I know that you were a professional tennis player for a while, which is really interesting. And then, it was like, hey, we need a better bag. Let's make a bag. That's the most, that's what I know is the summary, but I'm curious to hear a lot more.
That is a good summary. That's a good summary. Yeah, I mean, not without going too much into like my background. I lived in the US. I was born in the US. My parents are British. I got into tennis in the US massively. Um, Probably wouldn't have if I stayed in the UK. So, really got into it, and just it became my life from like a very young age. Wanted to try and make it pro. Started traveling a lot as a junior, playing tournaments and stuff, and uh, left home at an early age. I was traveling a lot, just try like a tennis academy, traveling a lot for tournaments. Just spent a lot of time traveling, and it was an amazing experience in the sense that just got to see places I wouldn't have ever been able to see, like literally Mozambique and Zimbabwe and South America and places like that. And it was an amazing experience, really tough as well. So I learned a lot from that experience because as a tennis player, it's a singles like you're on your own, apart from if you play doubles, but most of the time in where the money is made is in singles. So if you're on your own traveling, even if you meet people along the way, they're not always playing the same events you are. They've got a different calendar from you. Their ranking might be going up or down in comparison to yours. They may not get into a tournament. So I spent a lot of time traveling, but also on my own. And that was tough. And I learned a lot from literally, 15, 16, 17 years old, 20, 29 now, gonna be 30 soon. God. And
Oh, geezer. We got a geezer over here. Just kidding. I'm older than you.
so yeah, so I think I started traveling while I was and I went through like tennis bags like no tomorrow, like breaking on me. And I started to kind of just get into this industry of realizing that tennis bags were made very cheaply and they were, it was the basically a lot of tennis brands were just trying to sell tennis rackets and they basically made everything else as kind of like a branding play to sell, which is a strategy, I guess. And so yeah, so I got into sort of bags, just kind of trying to make it better for myself, I guess. Not knowing anything about product design, about textiles, or anything like that. And I got into the design side of things. I was able to meet some designers in bags that were kind of working for like sort of contract work for, say, Patagonia and interesting things like that. And so I learned a lot from them. And I made friends with it was one guy in particular. His name was Ed, and he has his own like workshop here in the UK, and he still does some amazing projects. Not in textiles in general. And I just got really interested in that, and he let me go to his workshop. I spent a lot of hours there working on our bags, but also just learning about different clients he was working with and how he did the design and all the suppliers he spoke to. And I went to some trade shows. There's one in Europe which is called ISPO. It's a bit like an outdoor retailer, and it's just huge with all these, material suppliers. And I just thought it was amazing how all these components came together to make a product, and really got into it there. And this was in 2019, where I was still playing on tour. So I was starting to take the sort of prototypes around with me. And the e-commerce side just came from wanting to have a way to bring this out into something to fruition. And I actually did a very small Indiegogo campaign in 2019, just before the pandemic, which did okay. I was, maybe 5, 6,000, maybe 10,000, I can't remember, dollars of sales, and so it was a very small campaign. I knew nothing about marketing.
Really cool though.
Like, it was okay. It was good. It was a lot of work, and that's why I realized that like it was a lot of work to get going, but I learned a lot just from that sort of short burst period. Uh, and then 2020 hit. Obviously, I found a factory that did sort of Kickstarter campaigns, like bags and things like that, specifically for small batch production. And the guy who owned it was actually American, even though it's based in Hong Kong. So he kind of understood the market quite a bit, and I spent a lot of time getting to know them. And during that time, during the pandemic, just kept refining the bags because I felt like what we pitched in the Kickstarter could have been, or the Indiegogo account could have been better. And so I spent a lot of the pandemic actually just refining the product line. Um, but yeah, the kind of modular thing with our bags that kind of came about through that period as well, and kind of just the idea of like as me as a tennis player traveling between different things, wanted something that would be both good on the tennis court, but I could also take on a plane. I could also, take in, for work wherever I was going. So that's kind of how it started. And yeah, and then the shop, I think we started like probably WooCommerce, like a lot of early brands back then.
Built
And yeah, and I think that I switched over to Shopify, I remember, because the we literally got a hacker on our site from Russia, who, like, I remember got this, like, cartoon coming up. We got, like, it was a fairly nice website for WooCommerce. I was getting to the grips with all of this sort of stuff, and suddenly I see, like, this, like, cartoon dancing on the screen, on the website on the screen, and it was this hacker who had gone in the back end and was just, like, playing games with us. Like, it was just the scariest thing. It was the scariest thing. This was in 2020, I think, the end of 2020, 2021. And I was like, "No, this can't happen again." And,
yeah.
we had good hosting and all that sort of stuff, so I don't understand how it happened, quite honestly. It was just bad luck. Because I looked it up online and found a few other people who found similar things, and, it was a scary thing. But, even with things like customer data and stuff like that, I was just worried about, them getting the back end of that. Luckily, we had, like, hardly any customers back then, so it was fine. But anyway, so it's kind of evolved since then over the last few years, and I think it's been a massive learning period for me when it comes to, e-commerce, marketing, product design, um, just launching products, the whole thing I think has been like, and I think that's what, just finishing this off, I think what makes it like so much fun is the learning side of things. I think it's something that I find very similar to my tennis. There's kind of this 1% better thing. You can almost like you log in, or, especially when it's like Shopify stuff, you log in and just like, how do I get things 1% better today? And it's just quite exciting to kind of make these incremental changes. And I think a lot of people in this space really enjoy that process, because I meet other people who maybe don't do this sort of thing. I think they find it almost like a bit tedious, making these sort of small gains, but I just really enjoy it. And I think what I love as a community as well in D2C specifically, I think there's a lot of people out there to help other people, sharing knowledge. Obviously, there's a lot of people who share their wins and things like that as well, but that's going to happen in any industry. But I just think that there's a lot of sort of communal effort to kind of progress the industry forward, and everyone wants to see everyone win, sort of thing. I get that feeling a lot with D2C. So I think it's what's kept me in it, from a D2C perspective. And I also think just the excitement of launching products, seeing customers' faces with customers with with your products is just an amazing thing. So kind of that's why I'm still here, I guess, after all the trials and tribulations.
Nice, nice. Yeah, there's a lot of good reasons. I think that it is definitely like a collective spirit of like solve the equation or whatever together, and it's really, really hard, and everyone knows that it's really, really hard. And so teaming up together is something that I've also been very in awe of in the D2C world. Have you ever seen anyone with a contra bag in real life that you didn't know?
I have, yeah, I have around London.
Cool.
And I have to stop them. I have to stop them. Uh, like I
That's
literally go up to them and say like, and they're usually like, well, always have been. No, it's not happened tons of times, but I whenever I come up to somebody who's has one, I just have to tell them, and I usually send them something like a little. I get an address and I send them something extra and just say thank you for making my
nice.
day because like there's nothing better than that. It's like similar to what you said the other day when you saw yours in the airport. Your product, you know, your I think it's your t-shirts in the airport. I mean that's just an amazing feeling, isn't it?
Yeah. It's pretty I'm always scared to go up to people. I like I don't know what to say, like, "Hi, I'm the founder. Thanks for buying my thing," I guess. I don't like, what do you say?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, like, the first time it happened, I was like, I don't know what to say. And I was with my sister at the time. She said, you have to say something. I'm not going to let you go without saying something. I was like, oh, okay. All right.
Good
So I
sister.
just went up to them and said, you know, just wanted to let you know, I'm really happy to see you've got a bag. That means the world to me. And you've made my day. So I'd love to just send you out something. And if you got any feedback, let me know. And yeah, so that's what I did. You know,
Dang, that's good. That's good. That's all. I'm gonna take notes of that. Gonna go up to them with a script on my hand. "Hi, my name is David. I like your bag, T-shirt."
yeah, I think people love it though. I think they do. They when they see somebody, yeah, bump to them, I think they most people, unless most people are pretty pumped to see the concept. So anyway, what about you, David?
Yeah.
I'm really excited to hear your story because I just I think it's really interesting. I mean, I know quite a bit of it already, but I want to tell more.
Yeah, let's see. It's been a whirlwind. So I've been this brand that I started is not the typical brand, I don't think. It's a very unique story, and basically it all started with me tweeting when I was commuting, in the city here in Seattle, and there's this local landmark, Mount Rainier, Tahoma. It's just a super, super cool thing, very unique landmark. It's visible for hundreds of miles when it's sunny out, which is not that often. And so there's this like local catchphrase, local sort of thing where people are always looking for the mountain to be out. And so I started to tweet to answer the question, is the mountain out? And then time went by a couple of years, it wasn't super consistent over a couple of years. And then I don't know how it actually started, but I think someone asked about stickers or something. So I started making stickers and built a ecom site on Card, the single page builder, website builder with like
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
embedded Gumroad products, I think. And the design was so bad. I didn't know anything about design back then. That was even before I was a developer. And so I just hodgepodge this thing together. I They were honestly like super ugly stickers, and they were just kind of like it said like Rainier Watch or something like that, I think, and which
What
is the
year was
name of the
that?
brand. I feel like it was 2016 or 17 or something.
Okay,
Um,
early.
yeah, and I'd started the Twitter account in 2013, so that's why I have like an EST 2013 all over the things. And it kinda just went I started with that, and then after a little while, I started to think about other products, so I designed some T-shirts and some hats, and that was originally print on demand. I switched to Big Cartel after a little bit because Card was so bad, and then switched to WooCom, after that, and I was using Printful for print on demand products, which margins were terrible. Designs, I was pretty much self-taught designer, so I was doing them all myself, and they're the ugliest t-shirts and hats. I still have some of them around. Oh my goodness, it was bad. But I kinda, like, looked at what other people were doing and other brands and sorta used that as inspiration, and like you're saying about that 1% incremental improvements, I feel like since those t-shirts to now what I'm doing, making custom fleeces and stuff, 1,000% better, but it's been so much hard work over the years and just kinda like I don't like the word grinding, but definitely feels like grinding nails and just constantly, like, getting better and better, and I didn't know anything about ecom back then. Eventually switched over to Shopify after a couple of years. When I switched to WooCom, that was kinda early in my development days, and I, thought I could do DevOps and thought I could manage a website and all the things and wanted to own the code or whatever, and I know friends that were using Shopify. I think this was like 2019 or 2020 maybe or something, but the cost, I was always like, "Oh, that cost is too much." But then I started to do some pop-ups in the area, which have always been a big part of the brand and were pretty successful because it's such a local brand. And it was a huge friction point to do the POS. I was using Square as the POS, but it didn't really integrate with the site. I didn't really want to buy an add-on, and I kind of just at the end of the day, that was a tipping point, and so I switched over to Shopify. And as a UX UI snob, the first like couple days using it, I was just blown away. I was like, "This is the most beautiful dashboard ever. I
Yeah.
can do things. It's fast. It doesn't crash. It was constantly crashing the old site." Um, and so that's been awesome. But it's also been really interesting to go and I started with the kind of print on demand shirts and to go into bulk orders and now to see my inventory or like my quantities that I'm ordering gradually improve over time and also leaning into a lot more custom products this last year or so. And that's been a pretty big unlock to learn from a lot of the experts out there of like you can make these things. And it that's I think the most interesting one of the most interesting things about running this brand is I like the ownership of it and being able to kind of do whatever I want. And I also get a lot of decision fatigue, so there's a downside to that, and analysis paralysis, and
Oh,
struggle with perfectionism, and so that prevents action sometimes, and I'm working on that and trying to get better at that. But, like, taking something from a concept or an idea on the screen and turning it into something that's real that you can hold and tangible just is, like, the coolest thing ever, especially because 'cause I've been coding for so long, and I love coding because I can build a site and have it be this beautiful, awesome experience that you can touch and feel through the screen in some ways. You can just kind of see. And so creating things has always been something that I really enjoy doing. And it's cool to be able to do that in real life now with actual physical goods. But there was so many things like early days, I was leaning into pop-ups a lot. I remember the first couple pop-ups I did at local markets, just it was just the strangest experience. Pop-ups are a totally different thing. And REI has been a huge partner over the last couple of years. That's been really cool to kind of lean into the wholesale side a little bit more. Um, but it I started it in our spare bedroom in an apartment many, many years ago. And the inventory thing and like the print on demand thing, that was a big learning curve. Products in general, big learning curve. There's so many different blanks out there for different things. I've learned way more than I ever thought I would want to know about t-shirts and hat styles and all like the little tiny details inside all those things. Um, and it's been cool to the brand is a mission-driven brand, so I look up to brands like Patagonia, Parks
yeah.
Project, Landmark Project, like these brands that are giving back to the outdoor spaces. That's always been part of the mission, and so it's been cool to team up with and I've become friends with some of the contacts that I have at the local nonprofit that's in charge of our national parks here, so it's been really fun to have that experience as well. It's been interesting to evolve the brand a little bit, and I'm future thinking about renaming it at some point and rebranding a little bit so it's not as geo-specific because I know that my TAM isn't very big, and that's always been something I've struggled with is, thinking about expansion and the brand strategically is it's like, what's the TAM look like? And well, it's super small basically if I'm only aiming at people that are in the Northwest or whatever that care about these certain things, which is good and bad. Like, it's good to have a passionate fan base, like, it's good to be niched, but, I'm thinking about that, and so, like, as the products have evolved, I've gone from kind of just, like, a bunch of screen printed designs. At one point, I stopped designing myself and hired designers to finish off my sketches. Like, "Hey, take this idea and run with it and make it way better," because it was a time constraint, basically. It
Yeah.
would take me 100 hours to design a T-shirt from this mock-up versus them not, and now I feel like I'm more in the realm of trying to make custom products that are just really cool and very inspired by the area and stuff, like the fleece that did so well a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so that's I guess that's kind of high level overview.
That's really interesting. I definitely would say, like, you're a very creative person. That I get that vibe, very much so. I think in just the set, like in from the products perspective, from the site, like in terms of, you've tried some really cool things in the past. What I've seen that you've like talked about in our, in the Slack group that I've seen that have been really kind of creative ideas around problems. And yeah, I think that is a massive like USP in terms of from the product perspective, but also just in terms of what's gonna I think gonna drive the brand forward a lot is your creativity. And it doesn't I think like you said, it doesn't mean that you are starting something from from start to end, but it's having that kind of creative vision at the beginning and you can go out with that. I think that's really important. The other thing I think it is I mean, you might be right, but I think, I mean, I see that stuff and I think I want that, and I don't live anywhere near Washington State. So I mean, honestly, I've been thinking for some time, like the next time back in the US, I'm making an order because, and I'm not saying that for the sake of saying it. Like I've been thinking about, every time I see you, whenever I see you post something new, I think when I'm in the States, I'm gonna buy something because the fleece I've really liked, even the t-shirts, I just think they're really cool. And yeah, I think, that stuff can like be on trend massively, and people
Mhm.
that nowhere near Washington State can really vibe with it. So yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity for you.
It's been really interesting. That's one of my biggest learnings or eye-opening sort of data points, I think, is looking at how many orders come from out of state, and it's over half, if I recall. I
Oh
haven't
wow.
looked at it for a couple of months, but yeah, I used to think like, "Oh, yeah, it'll be everyone in Washington," but as I've expanded and started to learn about Facebook ads and marketing in general, also also learning everything about marketing from scratch, um, and getting more exposure and trying to, like, build the brand using ads and advertising and stuff, it there's definitely a ton of people that have visited or, like, grew up in the area, expats, that sort of thing from this specific area that I'm in, and so that's cool, and I think that's like you're saying, like, brand vibes and, like, feels and everything like that, I definitely wanna take that and continue it. I do kinda feel like a creative director in some ways where it's, like, without the actual creative director experience and training, but to take the brand ethos and infuse it into things that are kinda a little bit more broad and more general, and it's like, yeah, if like, I would totally understand if you hesitate to buy a shirt that says, like, Mount Rainier and you've never been there or care about it, but, like, if it's that sort of concept or that idea, kinda just, like, outdoor space love packed into a t-shirt that's high quality and awesome and eco-friendly, that's where I see the brand kinda going.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think one thing you see about America is that people travel a lot to different states. I mean, uh, a lot of Americans have traveled to like many of the 50 states. And they love driving. And so I
That's
think,
me.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
I think I've been to
uh,
48.
wow.
I
Wow.
I can't remember which ones I actually haven't been to, but I think it's, like, 2 or 3. Yeah.
I mean, exactly. So I think a lot of people will find affinity there with just the outdoors in general, but also, Washington State, Mauritania. So I think, yeah, and I think that's what makes, to finish with my point, I think what makes ecom so cool is that you can be the creative director without a massive team because you have oversight over these products, what products you're going to bring out, how infuse your creativity into them. So I think it's what makes it so exciting.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, it's I almost feel sort of, limited by well, I can't make everything that I want to, and I've got just, like, endless ideas
Mm.
of products, and I wanna push a little bit more in that direction of, like, doing more small product drops and get into that drop cycle that is super hot and works for a lot of reasons. Um, but I feel, like, limited by revenue and, I need to be able to sell these things so I can continue that cycle, but it's been quite the journey and, like, so, so fun. Um, very curious to see how the next few years go. It's looking back at some of, like, the prior things that I had done with the brand and all man, it's just crazy to look at, like, where you come from and where you land.
Yeah.
It's a wild journey, and yeah. Um, cool. Cool, cool.
Well, yeah, I think that was a cool little. I mean, maybe we should have done this a bit earlier, but I think that was a cool little background on both of us. I think everyone's ecom journeys are quite interesting, so hopefully this was interesting to everyone listening. But yeah, thanks for tuning into this one, and we'll see you in the next episode.